Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new remake of Pet Sematary. I apologize that this review is very late. The week that this film came out, I was able to see Shazam, but really nothing else. I was really busy with work the following week, so I really didn't get around to seeing it until just now. So once again, I apologize about that. But I did see the original Pet Sematary back, the 1989 version a while ago. Um, I like that movie. I like the overall story of Pet Sematary. I am a Stephen King fan. Um, it's an intriguing concept. I don't think it's his best work he's ever done, but I think it's an intriguing story, and it was interesting to see a remake of the story and kind of what another director, or I guess it had two directors this time around, kind of to see what a new vision of the story would look like after being really creeped out by the very first version of the story in the original film in 1989. So, like I said, interesting to see a new take on this story. So, in this movie, you guys, if you don't know what Pet Sematary is about, it's about a family that moves into this new house in Maine, and they have this road next to them that's high speeds. The drivers really aren't careful. I think it's like a 60 or 70-mile-an-hour road next to this small neighborhood. And they also live next to a big forest, which has this really strange tradition called a pet cemetery, where people who live in the area or people who see roadkill on the road anywhere can bring that animal to this small cemetery in the forest and kind of bury the animal, bless the area, find like this burial ground for these animals in the area and stuff like that. Um, but they find out through the neighbor, played by John Lithgow, who was played by Fred Gwynne in the original movie. But the John Lithgow character basically lets them know that there is a land beyond the pet cemetery that's kind of covered. It's full of like tree trunks and grass and just stuff that makes it difficult to get past and stuff like that. If you bury somebody or an animal in that area, they'll come back to life, but they'll come back to life in an evil form of the way that you remember them. So they won't quite come back the same, but there it is a way of bringing something back to life if you choose to go that route. So it kind of doesn't mean anything at first, but through these a series of events of family tragedies that happen throughout the course of the movie, this family has to kind of consider, is dead really better? Is that person or animal being back to life and being with us, was that really what makes that special? Or if they're going to be evil, what does that mean and stuff like that? So Pet Cemetery kind of debates these questions a lot. I would say it debates it more than the first film did. The first film was more about creeps and scares, I guess. This time around it really is about like the moral question of, is it right to bring something dead back to life, even if it doesn't come back the way you remember it and stuff like that. So that's really what the remake of Pet Cemetery is about. So overall, guys, I thought this film was okay. I think I still lean on the side of the first original Pet Cemetery film more. I thought that first film had more effective characters, had more effective scares. In fact, it had really effective scares in the first one, I thought. Um, it just did more with the story, I felt. I think even Stephen King himself was a part of the screenplay process in that first movie. So even the changes on his end felt necessary to make that work better as a film and so forth. So I don't think he was as involved this time around with this remake. So it was just more so people kind of being more loyal to the book and doing something different, but not too different and stuff like that. So I personally thought this remake wasn't quite as warranted as it should have been. So let's go over some positives and negatives as to why I didn't hate this movie, but why the remake itself just didn't feel as warranted as it should have. For my positives of the movie, the debate of dead versus alive but evil I thought was very interesting here. There really is a lot of moments involving characters really bringing that moral question to the forefront of, do you want to remember somebody or an animal the way that they died? Yes, it was tragic, but they passed away. They're in a different, better place now. Or is bringing them back to life, if them being around more important, but they're evil and they're not quite the same, and they're going to be mean to you, and they are more hostile and stuff like that. So the film really asks questions about that: is just being alive good, or is dying from a good cause or dying of something natural just more natural? I think that's the debate that the film asks, and I think the debate is even more brought up this time around than it was in the first film, which I think this remake did better in that portion. Even though doesn't necessarily make a better movie, but I thought that debate of is dead really better or alive but evil, uh, what would a person really want? What would a person really want out of that scenario if they were given options and stuff like that? So I thought that debate was very interesting in this movie. I also liked how when something was undead or it was a dead person coming back to life or a dead animal coming back to life, I thought the vibes that these animals and humans gave in this movie was very good. I thought the undead vibes of the movie I thought were very strong. So when a little girl came back to life, or a cat came back to life, or a dog came back to life, it's undead and it felt very real. What I liked is they came back to life. You're kind of happy at first, but you sense something off about them right away, or you sense something off about like their hair isn't quite the same, and their neck and bones aren't quite the same and stuff like that. So I like how they were able to make those details so present when those characters were on screen. So I thought that was something interesting and vibe wise that the film was able to achieve. One thing that they kind of played around with a little bit, I thought they could have done more with it, is whenever the kids in the area had an animal to bring to the pet cemetery to kind of bury them, their tradition is they would wear like these weird animal masks and they would play instruments like this little drums or these little tambourines. Um, while carrying the animal to the pet cemetery. So I thought that aspect I thought was very interesting. It makes the pet cemetery more eerie and scary and kind of, it's about something dead and stuff like that. So I thought that ritual, or at least for the short term that it was around in the movie, I thought was very effective of the idea of something kind of eerie and scary to lead up to burying something dead within the pet cemetery. I thought that was very effective in this movie. Also, they play around with the wife's background in this movie a little bit more, which I really liked because I know they played around with it in the first film and it was very scary in the first film. This time around, they really kind of bring it home that this wife is very terrified by something that happened in her childhood regarding her sister. Um, it bothers her. There's even points in the movie where it completely cuts to black and shows this nightmarish vision that the wife is suffering from based off something that happened with the sister in the past. So I thought those nightmarish visions were very effective in the movie. Probably could use more of them just based on how effective they were. It made for an interesting character with the wife and everything. So I thought the nightmarish visions that the wife had were very effective in the movie. I also thought the little girl they got to play the young girl of this family was very effective. Rather, it was the scenes where something was coming back to life, or the scenes where, um, she wanted to get involved with the parents. She wanted to know what happened to the cat when it went missing and stuff like that. So I thought the little girl that they cast as this character did a very good job of playing both something that we're used to seeing with a cute little girl and something we're really not used to seeing with a cute little girl still being cute, but something kind of off about her and stuff like that. So I thought when that part was handled, it was handled very well. Also, I liked how the pet cemetery itself kind of looked in this movie. They kind of quote unquote called it a sour soil land that the Indians kind of abandoned after a while once they found out that the soil was bad and kind of did bad things with bringing life back but in an evil way and stuff like that. So I like the quote unquote sour soil land that was used for the pet cemetery. I thought that set was very effective, whether it was a set or something they actually found somewhere. I thought was a very effective way to kind of show us how scary the pet cemetery is, both when it's bringing something back to life and when you're in the process of bringing something back to life and stuff like that. So I thought it was a very effective set that they used for those scenes in this movie. For my negatives of this movie and why I really feel like it's not as warranted of a remake as it should be is first and foremost from one of my negatives is it just felt like an unwarranted remake. For the most part, it is the same story as the first film. When there is changes, they're not drastic changes, and when there is new material, there's just not enough new material. I really would have liked to have seen more with the animal masks and more with Jason Clarke's doctor life and more with what is exactly is the wife doing while the husband's away at this new doctor job, and there's just more questions I had, just more detail related questions. And I thought the film really could have just done more than just remake that first film. I just really feel like more needed to happen to warrant a remake, because we really essentially got the same film here with just a few little twerks and tweaks every once in a while to make it slightly different. But for the most part, it's just the same film made in a different year, really. For another negative I had with the film is this film just didn't have enough scares as that first film had. The first film really had a lot of practical effects, and I thought the scares were more effective. It didn't rely on jump scares in that first film. It really was all about how scary the undead could be in that first film, and just making just finding ways to be scary. And I thought this new film just relied on jump scares too much, and there just really could have been more scares overall in the movie. I also was really not convinced about Jason Clarke being a doctor in this. There's really only two little small moments in this film where we see him as a doctor, and that's really about it. I just really was not convinced that this guy was this professional doctor that was really needed in the area and stuff like that. So, really was not too convinced that this Jason Clarke character was playing a doctor. I also thought John Lithgow as the neighbor just wasn't as effective as the way Fred Gwynne played it in the first Pet Sematary film. Pet Sematary in the first one, with Fred Gwynne playing that neighbor character, he just had more of a warmth to him. You really could follow what he was doing and stuff like that. The John Lithgow version of the character just felt very salty to me. Just, he was likable. He got along with the family and stuff like that. He just kind of came off as salty to me, just not quite as warm and welcoming as the Fred Gwynne character was in that first film. So, I like John Lithgow as an actor. He did fine in the movie, but I thought the way he was written just wasn't quite as welcoming and warm as Fred Gwynne played him in the first film. There just wasn't enough new material this time around either. I needed more with the animal masks. I needed more with the Pet Sematary. There needed to be something more new here, and there just wasn't enough new material to warrant this remake, really. So the new Pet Sematary, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's okay. I think it's worth a Redbox rental. But once again, there just needs to be more here to warrant a remake, because what they made here just didn't feel like a warranted remake to me. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. I would make a good rental. We could probably skip the theater seeing of this movie, just the theater screening. So just rent this one if you want to see what the new Pet Sematary film is like. Just rent it.